Good evening, and a very warm welcome to all of you, those of you in the room with Mike, Kane and me here at Greencoat Place in London, and those many of you joining us online. We hope we'll give you something to be a takeaway tonight that will uplift you and possibly even entertain you. I'm Denis Nowlan, and I am the Executive Director of Initiatives of Change in the United Kingdom. Mike Kane is just recently appointed as our Chair of Trustees. And what we're offering you tonight is a kind of a two-way interview, and this is the way we're going to play it. I'm going to start off, well, Mike will go into bat first, and I shall be bowling him some swift googlies, and which Mike will bat away to the boundary. When Trudy here calls half-time, we'll reverse the order, and Mike will then throw them all back at me. Then we'll take questions for both of us from the floor, and that's it. So on we go with the show. Mike, it is traditional in MRA and in Initiatives of Change that we start every meeting with a song. Unfortunately, we don't have a song lined up today, and I know it's a matter of great disappointment to many people here that you haven't brought your bagpipes.
No, Dennis, thank you for this opportunity tonight. I do play the bagpipes. I play in an Irish pipe band back home in Wythenshawe in South Manchester called the Fianna Porrick, which is Irish for the followers of St Patrick. And I've been doing that because I was an errant schoolboy, and my family thought I had to do something that would socialise me. So from about the age of 14, I'm now 55, I have been playing the bagpipes, and I still do.
You have been known to play them wearing a kilt.
Indeed, yes, I wear a skirt for some of the week. We have a green uniform with an Argyle jacket and a bow tie. And everyone associates bagpipes with Scotland, but I like to say they were actually invented in Ireland along with the whiskey.
Well, I know you look very good in that kit. You're here principally today as our Chair of Trustees, but I ought to mention to our audience around the world and around the room that Mike, of course, is also an MP, Member of Parliament for Wythenshawe and Sale in the Greater Manchester area, MP for 10 years. And I think if we have, and we will have a general election this autumn, that will be your 5th general election.
1 by-election, 4 general elections and 2 referenda in Brexit and Scotland as well. So
you pretty much spent the last 10 years campaigning.
Oh, most people are retired by this time with that many elections.
So I know we're not here principally to talk about politics tonight, but we ought to mention that there have been a wave of local elections around the country and by-elections in the last few days with some quite significant results for your party. So how's it been for you?
Well, my tan is much better than it was a few weeks ago, and I've been getting 20,000 steps in easily every day for the last month or so. For those dialing in from overseas, the UK has seen probably one of its biggest set of local government elections that you get here, with many mayoral races, so the whole of Greater London, Mayor, Greater Manchester, East Midlands, Westminster Midlands, Teesside, police and crime commissioners, and thousands upon thousands of local councillors have been up for election this week. And I do like to say this, Dennis, whatever party or whatever you've done, I'm grateful for people who serve and put their name on the ballot paper, win or lose.
So tell us a bit about your upbringing, Mike. Are you Wythenshawe, Manchester native?
Yep, very much so. I'm really grateful for this chance to tell my story tonight. I think I saw Pope Francis say that people telling their stories, gazing into one another's eyes, that encounter is really powerful because that's how Jesus changed individual lives that went on to change the world effectively. And I know we're a little bit about that Initiatives for Change. Born and bred in my hometown of Wythenshawe, son of Irish immigrant parents. My mother was a cleaner, my father was an Irish navvy, so he worked on building sites up and down the northwest. He was very, very good at it, and so grew up in a very poor household, but a very loving, faithful one in a council flat in Wythenshawe. And then I had to share a room with my mum and dad till I was 10 years old, because we only had 2 bedrooms. And in the days, there was probably a bit more supply of social housing. Manchester City Council moved us to a 3-bedroom council house with a garden. And I remember how that uplifted my mum and dad's spirits, very much so. So, lovely family. Grew up spending some time in the west of Ireland as well, which was quite formative. But to have the opportunity to serve here in Westminster and to work with IofC and the things I've done and seen, remarkable really, that we live in a country where somebody can be of immigrant stock to being a Member of Parliament.
And you've come south today in spite of the rail strikes.
Well, fortunately, the Avanti, no matter how bad it was running today. My office manager, Suzanne's down with me, and she was hoping to go home tomorrow, but realised that the south is now cut off, I'm afraid. There's no way of getting back to the north tomorrow. So, this is my weekly journey on a Monday down on the Avanti. There was probably about 5 or 6 MPs on the train today. We were almost quorate in the same carriage. We could have done the business and probably got back on the next train home to Manchester. And then I usually stay down. That's usually a Monday. Today's Tuesday because of the bank holiday. And then back Thursday, Friday. And then my weekend events, and then family time, church time.
So you inhabit these 2 worlds, the north and then the south, home and politics. And a bit of IFC as well. I don't know how you fit it all in, but let's just talk about North and South for a moment, because the North and the folks in the North, they're famously down to earth, tough, resilient, friendly, warm, authentic. Those of us in the South, unfortunate enough to be in the South, are effete, elitist, a little bit phony, and pretty repressed. Is that a fair picture?
No. I disagree. I love coming down here. I love the friendships I've built down here. I love experiencing the south of England. In my 10 years, I've actually walked around 1 weekend a month doing little chunks. I've walked around London twice, both the inner ring and the outer ring as well. So I've got to explore the conurbation in the limited time that I've been here. My father used to say there are 3 types of classes. He said there's the working class, the lazy rich and the lazy poor. And it's always stuck with me, really, that. And so I sort of judge people on, do they work hard, do they deliver? Are they promoting the common good? Are they in it for everybody, not just themselves? And I see such goodness wherever I go.
And talking of the North and Manchester, Manchester City or Manchester United?
Well, I have to be really careful here because my marriage, we sit on different ends of the sofa for the Manchester City United derbies. I am actually a lifelong Manchester City fan from the first memory I had was supporting City. And I used to work for them, Dennis. I don't know if you know this story. In '99, which was a seminal year, we'd fallen to the 3rd tier of the English game under Joe Royle. And I got a job in a ticket office on a 0 hours contract. And it was the highest status, lowest paid job I ever had in my life. Because I was working for City, I could get tickets for all the games, got tickets for my mates. And now I've got a really well paid job, but I'll let the audience judge what the status of that is. So.
But you still find time for a bit of footy, I believe. I've heard that you play 5-a-side on Tuesday mornings with Tory MPs, with or against them?
It's whoever turns up in a light shirt or a dark shirt, that decide. We don't play on party political lines at all. And we all think we're great and, we're all messies and things like that. But sometimes they video us and then you really do see how poor you are at the game.
And it's an interesting picture that you might actually cross party divides at a moment like that and discover some, a common humanity even.
Very much so. It's interesting about how I think in politics, if you want to get on, you have to work with everybody. And that's when the best change comes about. So, I'm playing football with Ian Duncan-Smith or Ed Timpson or or Stephen Kinnock or Justin Madders or Chris Green. And, there's great camaraderie in the mornings. I remember one day fouling Ian Duncan-Smith. I think he was the Secretary of State for the Department of Work and Pensions at the time, and he was going on about fitness to work, and he was rolling over because he's quite a tough guy. He's an ex-army guy. So I helped pick him up, and I said, "Are you fit for work today, Ian?"
So what took you into politics, Mike?
Well, people who know me in the room know this story. Said I lived in a very small, loving household, but just as I sort of became 9 or 10, my mother developed a disease called multiple sclerosis. So I saw her as a child going from an extraordinarily hard-working woman to, within a few years, a woman in a wheelchair reliant on benefits. And we weren't a family of benefits at all. My father worked all his life, my mother worked all her life. And then I just got interested in disability issues. I suppose that was the radicalisation. And my MP was a guy called Alfred Morris. And if you hadn't heard of him, he in the wash-up of the 1970 election, he'd won the private members bill and introduced the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act. So I was going on to him as a sort of 16-year-old about we should do more for disabled people, not knowing that he was the patron saint of disability causes in the UK and became the world's first disability minister. And this legislation was replicated across the Commonwealth and many places on the planet. And so he just said, get involved, change it like that. So I did. I got involved. I joined my political party at the age of 16, 17 and was a councillor and a trainer and just helped other people get elected and moved on up through the chain. No direct career path in politics, and then ended up as a member of Parliament. Tragically, in a sense, because my predecessor died. I would never, he was a lovely man, and he died young of a hemorrhage. And so there was a special election, a by-election, and they needed somebody cut out of granite from the constituency. So I was sort of, chosen.
You were the man.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I know that your faith, your Catholic faith, is very important to you. Tell us a bit about where that meets your politics.
Oh, a lot of people ask me this. Often people say, do you believe in direct action? I say I do. I believe in prayer. I believe in encounter. I believe in dialogue. I think they are all forms of direct action. And in terms of my faith, there are three sort of uniquely separate strands. There's sort of the liturgy, which is sort of impenetrable to other traditions within Christianity. The sacramental programme, for sure, is quite exclusive. But the third and equal strand is around the social teaching, which really inspires me. So, we're born with dignity. The Gospel of John 10, chapter 10 says, unlike the thief that came to take life, I came to give it and give it in abundance. I want my constituents, I want my people who work with me, my friends, I want everyone to lead a life of abundance, to reach their potential. Solidarity, subsidiarity, looking out for those who are poor, the care for the creation, that this is the Garden of Eden and it's ours to tend. And then sweating the assets we have. We have to do that with this place, Denis. But the universal destination of goods is a really important concept when it means that you've built these things, you've got to use them and use them to their maximum value. If you cross-reference that with the corporal acts of mercy,
what do you mean by that?
Well, giving the thirsty water, giving the hungry food, giving the naked clothes, giving the homeless shelter, visiting the sick and those in prison. I think I've missed one or two off. But if you cross-reference those two sets of principles, you almost have a speech without any education. And I'm not a very well-educated man in that sense, academically, but you almost have a speech for every occasion. Because you can identify problems within the world, conflict within the world, and drill down with those sorts of cultural references to try and make change. When
Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and Tony Blair is a Christian, and he's known to be a Christian and became a Catholic, one of his spokesmen famously said, "We don't do God, so we don't want to talk about the Prime Minister's religion because it might be a distraction perhaps or an embarrassment in the world of politics." But you're not at all embarrassed about your faith.
I don't think so. I'm not in denial about it in Westminster. People ask me about it. I got involved, Chris is here tonight, I got involved, I think, very early on, almost the first week in the Catholic Legislators Network. I worked with other Christian denominations across Parliament. I was never going to be that politician. Maybe if I was on some slippery slope to Prime Ministership, I might have been more careful. But I think it's much better just being out there, really, personally, and it's of no bother to me. It ruffles feathers occasionally, but now people accept it. It's yeah.
And before you became involved with initiatives of change, you were part of something called the Movement for Change.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, on my career trajectory, I remember losing my council seat, which was quite seminal for a lot of people this week, in 2008 by 7 votes. And I was hoping that I'd go on and have a leadership role in Manchester or Greater Manchester at the time. And I didn't know what to do. And I ended up working for a cabinet minister, as it happened, running his constituency office. And then I worked for the next MP. And then I was basically, when David Miliband ran for the leadership of the Labour Party, we were sort of a little bit fed up with traditional organising, knocking on doors and asking how you vote. If you've had your door knocked on, you will know what I mean, or if you're politically active yourself. And that we would go deeper than that and ask what people would want to change effectively. So the principles of Movement for Change were first to do this, Dennis, to engage in dialogue on a one-to-one and then bring people together in common interest in a house party, which is very similar actually to Buckman and the Oxford movement, and then discuss strategies about leadership and how to change things. So I was involved as a volunteer in that, and then I said I was lucky as an MP. Our brilliant chief executive, Catherine, how do we put this, fell pregnant. And then I was forcibly seconded to come to London to run this organisation, which I did. And that's how I first got to know IofC. But I knew they operated in Wythenshawe for many, many years before that.
And I think you actually used offices in this building, didn't you?
We did. Just at the end of my tenure, we signed contracts to the end of the organisation to rent rooms downstairs. So, yeah, that's how we became very intertwined and close.
So is that a natural step from that into this then, into initiatives of change?
Well, I think there's a lot of lap over for me, because I think the primary purpose of leadership is to create new leaders. We want to create 10,000 new leaders. Now, we're working out strategies how to do that, but through Creators of Peace, sustainable communities, refugees as rebuilders, and all the other programmes we're building leaders all the time. And it's great to see it when they come into Parliament, or I come here to meet them. And then we have the absolutes of honesty, unselfishness, purity, love. I mean, how could you not want those things? Conviction and confession, and there's so much lap over, I think, to what's brought me to this place as chair in the last couple of weeks.
So tell us, to begin with, you've been a trustee for 3 years. Not that long, 18 months.
No, I've been involved for 10 years, I'd say, on and off with various things. I'd say 18 months I was invited onto the board.
And how's that been?
It's been a real eye-opener. We have great premises here in London, which we need to regenerate. We have premises and operations across the country, which we probably need to consolidate. We need to redefine our mission, I think, and that's why it's great to have your skill set and on board, Denis, for sure. And yeah, we need to sweat this asset. We need to build more leaders. We have to create we have to create peace, we have to bridge the world's divides, and I'm inspired to do that. So yes, I am busy, but I want to be busy in the way I want to be busy, and this ticks a lot of boxes, and I hope I can help the organisation as well with my skill set.
That could be a full-time job. So how's that going to work for you as an MP and all the other stuff you're doing?
Well, I play football just across the road on a Tuesday, so I can always pop in if you're really struggling. And I have a flat, a small little flat just across the way as well. And also in the new world, I think one of the things that probably switched life for many of us was the pandemic, and that we are now available via Zoom and Teams whenever we need to be. So I think in my first few weeks, you've probably, unless I've been at church, you've not had difficulty in getting hold of me for anything that's been required.
I have been amazed how quickly you respond to a WhatsApp or an email. Yeah. Maybe thanks to Suzanne here, your constituency manager, who's organising your life for you behind the scenes.
She does, but she manages a great team, and we had Joseph here, who was my intern as well. And all my team are up in Manchester, but they come down when they need to. They're not unfamiliar with IofC. They pop in, check out that I'm behaving myself occasionally, and it's great to have Suzanne here tonight in London. She was hoping to go home to Manchester tomorrow, but there's no trains, so it's two nights.
I'm wondering, in the few minutes there's so many things we could explore with you. I hope we can do another night like this when we could talk more specifically about politics. Maybe bring in one of your political colleagues to talk alongside you, and talk about democracy and the nature of Parliament and the ethical aspects to that motivate you. So maybe that's something for another night. But focusing more on your IofC role, where's the dividing line for you between an ethically focused commitment and an explicitly political stance?
Yeah, sometimes people worry when they have a politician involved in something that they come with an agenda and with their politics. I think you will find with me that I know where to leave that at the door. And if you talk to anyone I play football with in a Tuesday or in the house as well, they will say that, today Andy Carter, the MP for Warrington, walked straight up to my table. We'd only just landed in the House of Commons. We were just having a bit of lunch and a coffee after 3 hours on the train and travelling. And he says, Mike, I know you're interested in domestic violence, and there's a loophole about women getting treatment if at the weekends. At the minute, I think they should be seen within 24 hours, and there's a loophole at the weekends. And I've got a 10-minute rule bill next Wednesday. Would you sponsor it? And I went. And the fact that somebody like that could trust me to come along, and just say, yes, I will sponsor that. My name will go down on the bill. I will support that, because that is the common good. That's where our interests collide to try and make a better world. Now, a 10-minute rule bill won't change the world, but what happens is sometimes parties adopt 10-minute rule bills, or governments adopt them if they think it's the right thing to do. So you never know from day to day about what influence you will have in Parliament through a chance encounter, and that was just today.
That's fascinating. And in your IofC role, how explicit do you think we should be as an organisation in terms of taking political stances?
I thought about this for a while, and I would say we don't need a manifesto, because if we're going to do one-to-ones, if the outreach team are going to build leaders, they're going to bring them together in house parties, as the Bookman ideal was, they will build the manifesto. They will come up with what it is they want to change. And I think that's what we should support, the energy of that, not just that we have a set list of lobbying things to go to government about. And I think that's what we have to define, and that's what we have to build.
Thank you. So what are the big challenges that you'd like to tackle while as an MP, but also as chair of this charity? What are the big things that you think we should be tackling?
Well,
out in the world.
Out in the world, another interest for me is the fact that there are two things I'm going to say. One is, if you come to my office, we do some party politics, I have to get elected. We actually follow the Sustainable Development Goals for our corporate social responsibility. So we actually list all 17, and we have a work plan about women's education, about the quality of our air, our water, employment, right to medical services, peace creation, and we just try and work in our constituency doing that. Well, we're a UN organisation, we're a UN charity, we've got 4 seats at the table, our international body. So I'm thinking, how do we translate local into that global of the change we want to make? So I think that is critical. And Denis, for this organisation, we try and build peace. Now, we do that whether it be knife crime or with refugees and building leaders, but there are 30 conflicts. The Council for Foreign Affairs tells us there are 30 conflicts on the planet at the moment, from Ukraine to Gaza to Sudan to all over the place. And I'm thinking we're here in a global hub with all these communities who are on either sides of these conflicts, and we have this. We have a place here to start bringing people together and having these conversations, and then the house parties, and then just seeing what it is we can do to help, just through the dialogue. And I think we'd be doing Buckman proud if we can start doing some of that work.
Oh, thank you. Okay, last question for you. What are the things that give you hope?
Young people give me hope. I think, developing new leaders. We saw a sleuth of new people elected on Thursday who want to go into public life to change the world. I hope that some of my legacy, when I said the primary purpose of leadership is to create new leaders, that when I go off to wherever I will go off to after this work or into the next life, that I'll have left a generation of people who would have been inspired to go into public life to make a difference, not with a particular policy agenda, but just to make the world a better place. So I think that gives me great hope that there is a new generation coming through that want to create change.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Right. It is like this is your life format, isn't it? So now, just say a few words about Denis. I got to know Denis a few years ago. His wife, Joanna, absolutely wonderful person, was on the trustees board with me, and he would come and do reflections for us, Francis of Assisi, other reflections, even though he wasn't directly involved with the board or the organisation at the time. And we needed new leadership here. And really, the light bulb moment went on was thinking, can we pull this man who's had a great career in the BBC, he's a leader in the schools network, you're chairman of governance, aren't you, a big school. Can we persuade this man to come and give us some of his energy and some of his time and get us back on track? So it's been a real pleasure, Denis, that you've come on as executive director, and I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief, because now we can move forward with some of the internal visions and external visions that we want to do. So they say the child is father to the man. What sort of child were you? Were you good, naughty, bad?
Yeah, inevitably, I was Denis the Menace, wasn't I?
Did that come with the jumper?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it came with the broken windows and all of that, and just experimenting with what would happen if I threw this marble at that pane of glass. What would happen? I was a natural scientist, really, just really exploring the world. So yeah, a bit of a menace, but also curious about the world. My parents were both scientists, so they taught us to ask questions about how things work, about what things are made of, about the materials we use every day, but also how the planets move and the shape of the universe. So we were encouraged to ask big questions early on. My mother could, if you went for a walk in the woods with her, she could tell you the Latin names of all the plants. She could tell you the life cycle of a fern. it's quite complicated, and I can't remember it, but that was a nature walk with my mother. So, they taught us to be curious. They taught us to ask questions about society as well. So my father was involved in politics with the Liberals, I'm afraid, but they are. And he...
That's Ed Davey now, isn't it?
Phoning in. And he... Why did he do that? Because he believed passionately in democracy, and he believed that democracy wasn't about institutions, it was about people taking responsibility. And whether it was as he was as a scout leader, or on the parish council, or in the local council, or whatever it was, he was always in there, first to get involved on the committee, and gave us that sense that you don't just stand back and complain. You get involved, you step up, you take responsibility, and you hope that other people will too. So I guess those are the kind of lessons that they gave us. They also passed on their faith to us, like you. I was raised in a Catholic family. I haven't always been an adherent, as it were, or to the Catholic faith. There have been times when I've been quite distant from it, and
there's times,
but
this wasn't media wasn't your first career choice, was it?
I've had a few careers, yeah. But I've always been fascinated by the big questions. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What's our purpose on this earth? So I guess it wasn't a complete surprise then to my parents when I got involved, first of all, with the International Socialists in my university days. For those of you unfamiliar with that party, it was a Trotskyite party, a Marxist party of a Trotskyite persuasion. We were the one true church, as it were, as regards the Marxist gospel. And I worked with them for quite a while, and I sold the newspapers on street corners, and I went to the meetings and the rallies. But I eventually began to realize that we were replicating, and Marxist societies and Marxist political systems were replicating the very problems that they were trying to overcome. And that there was something bigger and deeper that I was looking for. And actually, I encountered what was then called moral rearmament at quite a fortuitous time for me, because it addressed those questions. It used the language of revolution, the language of radicalism, to say we need a deeper revolution to address the sources in human nature of conflict and violence. And I find that really motivating and helpful. Got involved with that was both at university and after university. Did a couple of years full-time with the movement in Southern Africa.
That's with IofC, the movement.
Yes, yeah. Or MRA as it was in those days.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago. Nelson Mandela was still in jail in those days. And it was a fascinating time to be involved with that movement in a society which was completely stuck politically. But under the surface, there were all sorts of movements for change, some of them violent and some of them not, trying to effect different kinds of change. I find it a hugely stressful place to be because of those tensions and because of the awful reality of that racist system that we were all caught up in. I came away with a deep respect for my MRA colleagues there, who were trying to wrestle their way through those very narrow spaces to find a role in that reality, and I began to see that what they were doing, and I don't know whether I helped, but I certainly learned from them. What they were doing was to prepare for a post-apartheid world, and I think They did that in all sorts of ways, big and small. I then moved on from there and found my way into a seminary.
Some change.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I think it was that I realized that I needed to go much deeper in my own faith, my understanding of faith, before I could be really much use to the world. I felt my approach to problems and people was quite superficial and not really grounded. And I'd begun to read a lot in Catholic theology, which I found really helpful, and that kind of led me more deeply into both the Gospels that you were talking about earlier, but also into the social teaching of the church and the approach to the idea that the church had a hugely powerful role to play in shaping a new society, and I felt maybe that was the kind of the training I needed, and within that structure I might be able to do something useful.
Well, I may have alluded to it just a few minutes ago, but you're not wearing a collar tonight, Dennis.
That's true. It's true. So, yeah, I did 3 years. 3 years in, and they were very, very enjoyable years. I was studying in Rome at the English College, the seminary which trains priests for the Diocese of England and Wales, and I was one of 70 students there. It's a college that goes back to Reformation times, when it was, of course, against the law to train to be a priest in this country. And back in those days, in the 16th, 17th centuries, many students came back secretly into England, and many of them died for their faith here. So that was quite a bracing tradition to be schooled in. You know, you walk down the stairs to morning prayers and breakfast every day, past a list of the 44. They were the 44 students who were martyrs, ex-students of the college. So that kind of, it made you think about what you might be prepared to give your life for. And so I spent those years studying theology and philosophy, getting to know Italy and Rome, and meeting students from all over the world. We used to go into lecture classes with students from 50 different countries. From behind there was then the Iron Curtain, and also from places in Latin America with civil wars and under military regimes. So absolutely fascinating encounters with people who were trying to live the gospel in most difficult situations. As you can see, as you say, I'm not wearing a collar now because I eventually came to realize that wasn't my path. And I remember, everybody in seminary wrestles with this, and if you're lucky, you have a good spiritual director, a kind of a mentor who will help you through those decisions. I had a very wise mentor, Benedictine monk, whom I went to see and told him about my dilemmas, and he said, if you decide that this isn't for you, you mustn't think of it as a defeat or a turning away from something. You have to think of it as a turning towards the light, because the reason you're here in the seminary is to find your path in life. And if the Lord is leading you out of here into something else, you've got to trust that and believe that's what this is all about, is preparing you for the next thing.
Incredibly powerful. So you left seminary, and then you ended up as a director, working for 3 decades or more with the BBC. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and the highs and lows of what working for an organisation like that is?
Well, yes, many highs, a few lows. The lows are most of them my fault, but many highs, and a hugely a hugely fascinating and enriching experience. When I came out of the seminary, I should say, I didn't go straight into the BBC. I had I had nothing. I didn't have a cent, and I had no connections anywhere, but I had an idea, because I'd done a bit of media training, that was the kind of the thread I should follow. I had this idea of a golden thread. You follow that thread, and it might lead me to the next thing. So I followed that thread to a couple of connections in the BBC, and they said, well, no, I don't have anything to offer you. But one of them said, I've got a 3-minute slot on Radio 4 in 3 weeks' time. Can you fill it for me? I said, yes. So my first break in broadcasting was a 3-minute slot, prayer for the day at the start of the Radio 4 schedule. And that was my liftoff. Now, I was earning my living as a painter and decorator. I can see Daphne Horder here. I actually painted and fixed Daphne's bathroom. I'm not going to ask whether it still works, Daphne, because oh, thumbs up on the bathroom. But thank you for that. Thank you for the work. So, kind of made my way, doing this and that, doing odd jobs. Did a bit of radio training, did a bit of journalism, bit of print journalism, and then saw a job advertised at the BBC. They were looking for a producer with specialist knowledge of the Catholic Church. I thought, that's for me. And that was the golden thread. So I went in, I joined the BBC's Religion and Ethics Department and worked with them making radio and TV programs for about 12 years, all the different radio stations. And being with religion meant that it took you into every aspect of life. You could do programs about art, about politics, about music, lots of music programs. It also took me into live events. So I was involved with things like the Remembrance Day ceremonies, the Cenotaph here at Whitehall in London, big live national events, remembrance services and memorial services in Westminster Abbey, and programs around the memorial, the Queen Mother's funeral, and a phone call in the middle of the night to tell me that the Princess of Wales had died in a car crash. And I remember waking Joanna, my wife, and saying, oh, I've just had this call. I think I better go into the office. And so I packed a little bag, and she didn't see me for a week. So I wouldn't say, I would say that was an extraordinarily intense experience, but it was a remarkably kind of privileged opportunity that working with the BBC that took you into that national and sometimes into a global conversation in wonderful ways. During that week, I must have produced 10 different programs. Everything, we had to scrap the whole schedule, of course. Everything had to change during that week, leading up to the funeral of Diana. On the day of the funeral, I didn't have a job. I wasn't involved in any of those broadcasts. But I had a call saying, I saw an internal email saying, NHK, Japanese telly, wants somebody who can advise them on behind the scenes on their broadcast for the funeral. And can anybody, I said, I put my hand up. So I was there behind the director, just opposite the front door of Westminster Abbey. And they, every now and then they'd turn to me and say, what is Westminster Abbey? What is a dean? And I was having to come up with little explanations of Christian ritual, Anglican ritual, and so on. It was just amazing to be able to contribute that to viewers in Japan. I also, I suppose, among the highs, I did the live. You talked about the Pope earlier. Mm-hmm. I did the commentary for BBC One for about a dozen years on the Pope's broadcasts on Easter Sunday morning.
So at Orbi.
Urbi et Orbi, his blessing to the city and to the world. Amazing privilege to do that. Go to Rome, and be in a room full of commentators, commentating in a dozen different languages, headphones on, looking out into the square, but also looking at the monitor, which showed me the pictures that RAI, the Italian television service, were producing, because we were entirely dependent on their director and the shots that they called, and hoping that the shots that they called would somehow correspond to what you wanted to say, because you had to improvise the whole time, just had to be ready for whatever came. So it was a wonderful exercise in spontaneity and in trust and in leaving your notes aside, because I'd always have pages of notes which I never used, because you just had to look at the pictures and say what came into your heart and into your head, respond to whatever happened. Didn't always work. My nephews and nieces will always remind me of the day when I was all set to do this and I was waiting for the countdown from my producer. I had my script, my opening lines, because you don't have the opening lines ready. Pretty easy opening line. I was going to get a big shot from on the screen of St. Peter's Basilica, huge piazza, huge crowd of people, and I was going to say, "Welcome to Rome and to St. Peter's on this Easter Sunday morning." So what could be easier than that? So something must have distracted me because I lost track of time, and suddenly the producer was pointing to me and saying, "You're on, you're live," and the light went on, and I saw the picture and I said, "Welcome to St. Rome." And at that point, you know you've messed up, but you've got to go on. You've got to go on, as if nothing has happened. I didn't become the next David Dimbleby, but but I did. I enjoyed those experiences immensely. And again, it was an opportunity to be part of something global. And then the last, actually, that 20 years of my BBC life was running radio stations. So I make a sort of a Faustian bargain. Instead of producing programs, which is, somebody once said that there are only two jobs worth having in the BBC. One is to be a producer, the other is to be the Director General in charge of the whole thing. Everything in between is just, bureaucrats. So I decided to become a senior manager, and obviously the pay was a bit better, but I gave up the joys of producing because I wanted to have that experience of strategic thinking, of looking outside my own little world of my program going out today or tomorrow or next week, and actually to get that bigger picture. And that was completely fascinating for me. I realized as soon as I went into that job that I'd been living in almost like in a little snow globe. And now I was living in a big room or a big house in which there were hundreds of snow globes, with all these bitty producers in them. Because suddenly I was responsible for Radio 4 with hundreds of producers, hundreds of programs, hugely complicated schedule, having to respond live every day to events in the news and generate news, current affairs, comedy and drama. So it completely changed my mindset, and that was really good for me. I hope it was good for Radio 4. It was a massively steep learning curve for me. I realized very quickly that I was in a very deep end, and I had to learn. I had to find a mentor who could help me to swim there, and I did learn to swim. But I made some mistakes too, and mainly through trying to do it on my own.
Yeah. Well, I think the mission of the BBC is to educate, inform and entertain. You're doing those three in equal measure really well tonight, Dennis, so just to let you know. I have to just sort of move on because you retired, and then I remember meeting you the first time you came to Parliament for a coffee, and we had a walk around, and I thought, God, this guy's got something about him. But your mission now, you're clearly mission driven. And then we've seen from this young man in South Africa trying to plot a path through apartheid, involved in the Oxford Group, moral rearmament, and suddenly your journey as we persuaded you back out of retirement, and I know you enjoy your gardening and allotment work, to come back and help us out here. So what was that process of you coming back here? And obviously we want to get a sense of, for the time we have you as Executive Director, what it is you want to do and want to achieve.
Well, it certainly wasn't part of my retirement plan. But when you put it to me, it was like a big window opening up. I suddenly thought, gosh, what a fascinating opportunity and challenge. Now, I was somewhat aware of developments in IofC in recent years because, first of all, I mean, although I've not been directly involved for many years, I've kept friends with quite a few people in the movement, in the organisation, in different countries. So it's not as if I haven't been unaware of how things have been moving, but more directly, Joanna Shortino Nowlan, my wife, a wonderful person, as you say, has been a trustee of the charity for 3 years, I think. And so because of her involvement as vice chair to Margaret Cousins, I was able to follow at one remove developments here and in the charity and some of the strategic things that were going on and the kind of, the mood of the thing. And I realized, I heard some of the great things that were happening. I knew some of the challenges as well. And so when you pitched it to me, I thought, this could be really fascinating. And obviously it meant for Joanna, she would have to step back from being a trustee. And I have to say, she wasn't involved in my appointment in any way. It was a complete surprise to her when you mentioned it first to her and then to me. So she stepped back from that, and I stepped up to the executive role, and I did so with a great sense of excitement and kind of curiosity about what this charity can offer the world today. Because as we said, I have a history with MRA. I know a lot about its traditions, about its great kind of record of achievement. And I also know some of the difficulties that it's gone through over the years. And, there have been unhappy times, and people have felt they've had to leave for all sorts of reasons, sometimes because they were unhappy with them, sometimes just because they felt it no longer kind of fitted their kind of calling in life. But I've always had a huge respect for it. And I had a sense that it has matured. It's changed enormously. There is still, there is a core of an irreducible core of a wonderful set of truths to which IofC remains faithful. If you want to change the world, start with yourself. What's more obvious than that? And yet, somehow, to many people, it's not. Always start with somebody else. There is a source of wisdom within us, if only we would attend to it. And we may call it the Lord Buddha or the Lord Jesus. But I was at a fantastic conference in India, at Asia Plateau, back in January with Joanna. The most wonderful encounter with Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, a rabbi, atheists, and a profound sense of common humanity and searching for the next steps in an emergent future for that country and for us all. So there is that core of kind of universal truth. And then there are so many ways in which it seems to me that the movement has developed in hugely positive ways. I think there was a time when it was quite inward-looking. At the same time as wanting to be outward-looking and change the world, it got a bit inward and kind of a bit too convinced that it maybe was the answer for the world rather than part of God's answer for the world. And now I think there is, it's just unanswerable now that everybody sees this is just part of a great river of grace, of life that's flowing through the world. And we can be a part of that whenever we want to tap into it. And our team is not the people in this room or on the Zoom or the people who are part of the association or the people in the church or the Labour Party. Our team is actually everybody who wants to be a part of that, who is already a part of that. And many of those people are already doing that and doing it better than any of us. So we can be a part of their team too. The team is always vastly bigger than anything we can imagine. But I see within IofC now, in this country and around the world, I see it in this room, and I see Muna there, refugees as rebuilders, and I see it on the screen there, and I saw it at Asia Plateau. Evidence of hope, of genuine hope for the world, through the discipline and the that universal fellowship and kind of openness to change that is the very best of IofC. And I want to be a part of that, and I want to, in the next little while I'm exec here, whatever I can do to nurture that hope and those shoots of growth, I want to do. I want to lend a hand. I've talked too long. I'm sorry.
I think we give Denis a round of applause, actually. I think very inspiring. Thank you ever so much, Denis. We are so grateful for you coming on board and helping us out. And that was really inspirational. You've told us your journey. You've told us your hopes, your fears, what you want to achieve, what the barriers to that could be. For those listening on the screen, we've got hundreds on the screen, a full room here. I think the message was there to get involved and be part of that growth.
Absolutely.
And I think with that, Trudy, I hand back to Denis now for questions from the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. And now, Trudy, I believe that we have a couple of roving mics, is that right, in the room? And we're going to be open to questions online and within the room. But in order to manage this as best we can, I'm going to start with people in the room and then move to people on screen. Otherwise, I'm going to get dazed and confused. So hold on to your questions, those of you who are joining us online. Let's start with people in the room. And anybody like to put a hand up and call for the mic? Questions for Mike, for me, for either of us? Or comments on what we've heard? Yes. Tell us who you are first.
Kath Hutchinson, and this is for Mike, and it may be much too political for this. We've just had but you did refer to the local elections, and we're about to have, well, whenever we have them, general election. And I presume you were involved in knocking on doors during the last month.
I don't know when the date of the next election is, Kath, if that's what you're going to ask me. That's what everybody's asked me.
Rishi Sunak's the only person that knows that. Labour has done incredibly well, and particularly after the last chaos of the last years. But the sad thing that, the whole but the position with Muslims and the whole approach to Gaza, and there was a guy I think from Muslim Council of Britain, wrote in The Guardian yesterday about there is a chance to put things right if you want it, if Labour want... I don't know, there are various, and there was something on Twitter that David Lammy put on, which I saw over the weekend, which I thought that's a slightly different message from the Labour stable. IofC's all about putting things that have not gone right, better, seeing what you can do, and I mean, there's putting things right, there's forgiveness, there's apology. Is it, what do you feel about that whole situation, and do you think, is this a short game or a long game? Because there have been a lot of support from the Muslim community in the past, and well, we shall see what happens in the future. But there's also, you also talked about all the other sort of 30, 40 other wars going on, and there's Yemen, which has also had huge, famine and atrocities, and lots of, I mean, there are lots of places that, and Ukraine and so on. Anyway.
That's all right. Thank you, Kath. That was an absolutely cracking question. First of all, I think it's just worth putting into context that IOC, since this conflict has started, has been involved in a number of ways, because we actually had an operative in Gaza working, and his family were there. And through the offices and my offices, and working with the Lord Ahmed in the Foreign Office, we managed to get our operative out of the conflict zone and to a place of safety in Cairo through the Rafah crossing. And also recently we hosted, and many of you would have been to it, the Balfour project as well, talking about the conflict. But this should be a space about where we can talk about that conflict and bring communities together. Now, this is a millennia-old conflict. I was recently asked, how did it start? I was like, I almost went back to Abraham, Hagar and Sarah and Ishmael and Isaac. It's millennia old, and then it's confused by, what happened under British rule, back earlier in the 20th century as well. And politically, it has caused chasms, because people see themselves as their brothers and sisters on the other side of the planet, and that's a good space to be in. That shows proper solidarity, that my brother's keeper isn't just my neighbour or my immediate family, but they are on the other side of the planet. So we have to work harder and faster, and through IOC channels, because we're an international organisation, to try and bring some resolve to the horrendous suffering, both of the families who are still held hostage, to those who died in October the 7th, but of course to the tens of thousands that have died or injured in the conflict. And so we have to be brave and bold. There is a political element of that, but for us at IOC, bringing communities together to talk about the history, and more importantly what the future will look like, I think there is a space for us.
Who else? Who else in the room? Look.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to quote John Gardner when he said, life is the art of drawing without an eraser. If you both were to have one, which part of your drawings would you use it on? Thank you.
Goodness. Lord Sayoum, newly appointed as a trustee for Initiatives for Change. Thank you very much. So which part of your life drawing would you erase if you could?
So, okay, this is going to be completely off-piste, everybody. But I'm a huge Trekkie, particularly the Next Generation. And there was an episode, Picard, who's this great leader in Star Trek, Starship Captain, saves the universe dozens of times. Wish we could all do that. But there was one particular episode, which name escapes me, where this external force, this omnipresent force, takes him back through his life's journey. And one of them was a fight as a young person where he gets badly injured. And he goes back and he changes it where he doesn't get badly injured in the fight. And he goes back and erases a couple of things that he thinks would make him a better person. And then he gets transferred back to the future. And he's just an ensign on the deck. He's not a starship captain anymore. And really, you are the sum of your parts, even the mistakes. You know, you've got to own them, I think, and not deny them, whether they be personal, political, or managerial. You know, in our work life, we are the sum of the parts where we are in the eyes of God, where you are now, effectively. And I wouldn't be in this position without resilience from the hard knocks, losing elections, losing loved ones, losing family, young, the relationships I've had and the relationships that have gone. They just make you who you are now. And so I wouldn't erase any of it. That's my answer.
Okay. I completely identify with that, Mike. I think I would add, I was going to say, until you started talking, I was going to say I'd like to erase some of the mistakes I've made, but now I realise that I shouldn't. I should ruefully be glad of them, because I hope that they've helped to keep me a little bit humble, a little bit humbler than I might otherwise have been, let's say. And I can think of mistakes I've made which very often have been because I've made a decision too hastily, because I haven't thought to ask somebody else's opinion, because I've rushed to judgment on somebody, because I just thought, well, I'm right and you're wrong. And I think again and again, looking that if I'd only thought for 3 minutes, I would have had a different perspective, which takes me back to the heart of what we do here in IofC, which is to take a moment to listen and to stop. So I want to say that I'm going to own those mistakes, and I'm going to be glad of what I learned from them. There you are. That's it.
Coffee on the screen.
Okay, let's go to the screen.
Oh, I've got one here.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very much and good evening. My name is Hood. I'm a member of RRB. In your talk, Kane, you talked about a lot of things. I was excited about your cause for the women, give food to those who are hungry, and create peace. It's not going to be a question, it's a request that as you want to make peace, I want to knock one day on your door, come with my team. We talk about the small conflicts, I think, because when you talked about the 30+ conflicts in the world, I don't see some of the internal conflicts taking place today in Africa. For example, the Great Lakes region. There is no difference with Gaza or another conflict, or Ukraine and Russia. So, but we need to address these on an international level, because that's why they are continuing going on. As Somalia was addressed internationally, Somalia is trying to settle down. But now there is another fire going on in East Africa, Uganda in particular.
Yeah.
We have a Pol Pot there. We have a Pinochet. But the world is not looking at it. It's getting $1 billion funding from the US. Taxpayers' money from UK is going to Uganda. So we need to look at Uganda as a problem. Please put Uganda on your political GPS
Yes.
and look at it and work with activists from that region, from that country. Otherwise, we are going to continue having uninvited visitors through Mediterranean Sea, and again, we are going to ship them back to Rwanda. As we ship them to Rwanda, it will be easy prey for the Pol Pot of Africa, General Museveni, pick them up and feed them to his tigers or whatever animals is having to divide it. These are people, just activists, demanding for an easy, peaceful voting system as we had on the 2nd of May in UK. So what is good for the goose is also good for Ugandans. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to work with you about creating peace in that part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you can look to Africa, despite the problems it has now in the Sudan, Nigeria, Somalia, Uganda, as some of the best peace building in the world. Who would thought we would get to a situation where Rwanda would have a functioning government, a peace and reconciliation committee, half its elected parliamentarians are women. The first African mayor of Manchester was a woman, a councillor called Yomi Mambu, and so from a young age I've kept an interest in Sierra Leone, and about 5 or 6 years I got to visit President Oromo at the time and look at the peace and reconciliation we've seen there since the civil war, as well, to a functioning, poor but be it state. And I make the point again, in my constituency, we have a No Africa group, and the point of having an Africa group is it's vast. It's half the planet, but these people come together because they've got a shared interest in Africa. So I actually get to hear a lot about what's going on at home by just having these discussions and the political situations that are ongoing. But we have Ugandan populations, we have Sudanese populations, we have Nigerian populations right here in London, in Manchester, in our big cities. That could be a place where we bring people together to see about, through the diaspora, about how we can change conflict. And I hope that in my tenure that we can begin to do that and engage with those groups right here in the UK around how we build peace back home for those people and their families.
So I can see some hands up on the screen, but it's quite difficult for me to read it from here. Samantha, could you help here? And you choose some names there from the screen. Can you do that?
Samantha, can we go?
And invite people on the screen to pitch their question?
Yes, I think one of the hands that came up, Jeffrey Lean,
That's
online.
Thanks for a wonderful discussion. I'm not muted, am I? Am I hearing? Oh. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jeffrey.
That's
Oh,
fine.
great. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Thanks for a wonderful discussion. It's been absolutely fascinating. And of course, Dennis is an old friend, but it's super to meet you virtually, Mike. And I wish we'd done it many years ago. So much of what you said chimes with me as an old environmental journalist, some 50 years standing. And not least because I'm disabled, but that's another issue. But I was fascinated that you should raise as your two main subjects, both sustainable development goals and all they entail, and conflict, because that's where I spent my life as well. And oddly enough, actually, one part of sustainable development goals was actually launched at CO through IofC. But I was wondering if we could digress a bit on the interaction between the two, about how conflict will arise out of lack of development, lack of looking after the environment.
Yeah. Well, great to meet you, Jeffrey. If you talk to Susanna, my office team, we talk about the environment quite a lot. One, how to improve it in your constituency. my relationship with United Utilities, which is our water company, isn't so great at the moment. But we are. Maybe I should get IOC to come in and help mediate that. But because of climate change, it's probably the growing threat to the planet over the next century, effectively. Currently, 1 in 120 people on the planet are on the move, mainly through conflict, but a lot of that conflict is actually down to resources as well that are being impacted by climate change. So Denis said about the flow of humanity from Hindus and rabbis and Muslims and Christians. The one thing we all have is a sort of sense of sacred of the creation. And I think you have to look at what combines you. And I have this, I think a lot about, integral ecology, the sort of internal deserts. If you can't change them, you're not going to change the external deserts which you are growing on this planet. So I'm hoping also there's a place for that in IOC in terms of environmental justice. And maybe one day if we can renovate this building, that we will actually have a better garden too. So we will do it practically as we will do it politically and through campaigning, Geoffrey.
I must say, I've huge respect for Geoffrey for your life's commitment to the cause of global awareness of environmental issues and development issues, and the convergence of the two. I can offer you just one little green shoot of hope, if you like, which is that our colleague here, Muna, is traveling to Ethiopia in a couple of weeks' time, in less than a couple of weeks' time, in 2 days' time, yes? Yeah. It's part of a project which we're funding, helping fund, I should say, to explore the possibilities of restoring a food crop, a vital staple food crop in the Horn of Africa, which was indigenous to that part of the world, which is the cultivation of which has fallen out of use because of conflict and displacement. Muna is a plant scientist, as well as all the other things she is, and she's leading a pilot project next week to start a small scheme to see if we can reintroduce that crop and the cultivation of that crop in that area, but also to work with the team of IofC people in Ethiopia, to bring them together, to bring them back into contact, more lively contact with us here in Britain. So, Muna, we wish you well.
I think we're just going to do one last question online, if that's all right, and that's going to be Anna.
Do you think that the Catholic Church needs a change in its structure and its relationship with the world, with the society? What do you think about this? Thank you.
Did you say the Catholic Church?
Yes. I think Catholic Church. Yes, I am Catholic.
Right. Shall I take this, Mike, to start with? Yes, I do. I do think it needs to change, and I think it knows it needs to change for all kinds of reasons, to do with our changing attitudes to the role of women in society, and our changing attitudes to authority and hierarchy and so on, our diminishing trust in assumption that institutions can simply assume that they have our trust and respect rather than earn it. Yeah. And of course, there have been lamentable reasons for the leaking away of confidence in the Church's institutions in recent years. I know that Pope Francis is also admirably aware of the need for change. I think he's up against it with some of his colleagues in Rome, but I think he's on the right side here, and so my prayers are with him. Mike?
I think there's a synodal process ongoing at the moment, and interestingly, I think Pope Francis said that his pastors should smell like their flocks. And one parish priest said to me, God will be very smelly. But I think the point of making it that the church should be working on the ground with people, all people, to build them up to the greater good is what the change that needs to take place. And change is difficult, as we know, and Denis has mentioned it. He meets resistance, but I think eventually it will prove right and be the right direction, because that's where the Holy Spirit is taking us.
Thank you.
Trudy, are we on track?
We are.
We are. Good. All right. So look, we're going to draw the evening to a close in a moment. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Sorry we don't have time to take more questions online. I hope, if you like, send emails to me, to Mike, if there are things you'd like to enter into dialogue with us about. I'd love to hear from some of you who are zooming in tonight. I know that Mike would too. Before we wind up the evening, we've talked about silence. Let's have a moment's silence together.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank those of you in this room and on Zoom for joining us to listen to the stories of our two gentlemen and a brief description of who I am and what I do. Our theme is from the personal to the global, a conversation about change. We are change makers. I would like to ask you, as such, to greet the one on the right and on the left by saying, hello, change maker. Shall we do that, please? And I will do it here. Hello, change maker.
Hello.
Hello, change maker.
Mike.
Those of you on Zoom, you can also lift the clapping hands, recognizing that you are change makers. Thank you. Well, we've just had a minute of silence that Denis invited us to do. I will ask for 1 minute of silence again to reflect on those who lost their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean, the desert, in search of a safe space. Let's remember them, their families, and friends. For those who don't know me, I am Lul Seyu. Originally, I am from Eritrea. It's a country where I spent my formative years. I wear different hats, some of which are as director of the International Center for Eritrean Refugees and Asylum Seekers, known also as ICERAS. It's an organization that assists migrants, refugees, asylum seekers to become productive citizens of the hosting countries. Another one that I would like to mention is an organization that I work as a director and co-chair. It is an organization called United Against Inhumanity. I would invite you to check it out, please. It is a global movement of individuals and groups who are outraged by the atrocities of war and the erosion of asylum. I am a staunch supporter of women's rights. Whenever I go to a boardroom, I don't see if someone is black, white, or whatever. But is there a woman there? So, my good friends, the ladies over here, please, please, let's promote women. There is no change without women. And I'm sure Mike will endorse that in the house where he belongs. I have been, as earlier on said by Denis, nominated, or appointed, I should say, as a new trustee of Initiatives of Change. I'm very grateful, and I take this occasion to say thank you to all who nominated me, who endorsed the nomination, because I'm here to be able to contribute, like all of you, to the building of our world by working to have positive change in the lives of the underrepresented, societies that are impacted by many challenges. Well, in the interest of time, I think I will leave it there, but one thing I would like to say is to help me, in fact, to put your hands together to thank Denis and Mike for your great contributions. Please accept our gratitude. And I say this in the name of the staff, the volunteers, the fellowship, and the trustees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Interesting stories. Touching also.
Thank you, Lil.
I have to say thank you.
Thank you. Shall I take that? Okay. Okay. Time to say goodnight. Thank you for everyone who's joined us from wherever you are on Zoom. It's been wonderful to have such a wonderful, such a big and varied audience with us tonight. I want to mention one thing, which is, well, two things. First of all, we branded these events with a new kind of umbrella title. We're calling them IofC Insight. And that's because we want them to be opportunities for us to have insight into the work of IofC, but also opportunities for us in the context of IofC to discover fresh insight into the world that we want to serve. Here's a book that helps do both of those things. And our next IofC Insight event is going to be with the author of this book, Judy Connor. Judy has written a remarkable book in which she tells the story of her life, as it were, a child of MRA, the story of her parents' commitment to that radical organization in the post-war years, and what it was like for her to grow up within it and to make her own way in the world. So I'll be in conversation with Judy. It's on Thursday, the 13th of June at 6 p.m. I'm sure Trudy will send out a link in due course. We look forward to having you join us then. Thank you very much, and good night.